So the session, and I'm actually at loss of words in terms of describing how do I intend to plan that session for you, because most of what is going to be heard from all the experts who are sitting here is very difficult for probably them it will be very difficult for them to be able to balance the realism versus the pessimism that we have experienced over the last many months. I'm an accountant by profession, so I will also be enjoying the fiery conversation that we will be having, courtesy, obviously, those 5 experts who we have. Obviously, I'll be surrounded by all those 5 economists who are sitting besides me. And I think the format of this discussion is that everyone has got to share some of their thoughts. So essentially, it would be that I will be requesting each and every one of our panelists, esteemed panelists, to have those 3 to 4 minutes of their time in terms of speaking their heart out. What do they feel about the current economic affairs? What do they feel about what are the challenges that the country faces? How is the life for the common man? How is the life going to be for the common man? What is it about the IMF tranche that's going to come in, when it is going to come in, and what difference will it make to the country on a sustainable basis? All those sorts of conversation I'm expecting our 5 esteemed panelists are going to do with yourselves as the startup of this conversation that we will have with you. So none of these experts need any introduction, so it makes my life easier. So obviously I will initiate the conversation with one of the most illuminating writer and the analyst on the macroeconomic and the other economic affairs, Ali Khizar. So Ali, over to you for the next 4 to 5 minutes. If you could share some of your insights, your thoughts on how do you think, how is the condition, how severe is the condition you feel currently is, and what challenges do you think the country is facing and will be facing?
Thank you, Faraz. I mean, the situation is precarious. Pakistan is facing an unprecedented challenge. Inflation is setting its all new records. It's probably the highest ever inflation the country has faced in the history. And there's a global crisis which culminating into the default risk of, I would say, the debt refresh of about 40 odd countries. And if you have defaulted and Pakistan is at the verge of it, then there is a domestic political crisis which is very charged up as of now. And there is a polarization in the public at such a high inflation level and a stagflation which is happening, where your growth is falling, unemployment is increasing, and inflation is high. And then this political instability, that is a recipe of a disaster, and that is what in the making. So strictly on the economic front, as we all know, that the country forex reserves as of now is $4.3 billion, which is barely covering 1 month of compressed imports. Your repayments are higher than that in the next few months. Then you got current account deficit to finance, which is required for you to cover up your food, energy, and other essential needs, and that's in jeopardy. And for all this happen, the staff level agreement of the IMF is the key, and that's not happening as of now. I mean, the IMF is verifying the financing needs which the friends have promised. IMF wants your reserve to move up to about $10 billion by June. Earlier it was a plan of $16 billion. And considering the rollovers and everything and all that, you required $3 to $4 billion more on this, where you asked friend. One of the friend is a big GCC country that's perhaps is asking for the political stability, and perhaps the news flow suggests that Washington is asking for the political stability as well. And without getting that political stability, there are chances that IMF has still not happen. If that not to happen, you will end up into a forced default, and you'll not be able to pay your repayment. And if you don't be able to pay those, then you go into the forced debt restructuring, where the foreign debt restructure may ask you to restructure your domestic debt as well. And if you restructure your domestic debt, and if you take a haircut of 20%, that will wipe out some of your small size banks, and the medium to large size bank would come into great stress. Interest rate would go up further. Private sector would default as well. There's a highly likely chance that private sector default. There'll be deposit run. The economy would turn into dollarize. Your currency would turn into a monopoly money and everything. That's an extreme distress scenario I'm portraying, but I don't see that happening as of now. I see that somewhere less than that would happen, and you'll get to an SLA sooner, and then you enter into a new program with the IMF in the next 4 months. And once you enter into that, you perhaps go for the soft debt restructuring or reprofiling, unless you get a $20 billion cushion from your friends, either Saudi Arabia and China. Otherwise, you need to shore up some kind of other reserve, which not going to happen without the debt restructuring. And you do that, and it'll take 18 to 24 months for economy to normalize in a best case scenario. That means your imports will start normalizing in 18 to 12 months. That means you'll be able to import your machinery, cars, phones, and other material which were the first one to restrict in 18 to 20 months. And in between, you'll start importing chemical and other materials and all that, which you are not doing right now. But if that not to happen, the situation will continue like this. And even if that to happen, the situation what we're facing now is going to continue for the next 12 to 18 months. There'll be more unemployment. There'll be higher inflation. And that's something you need some kind of political and social consensus on doing the reforms. And for that, you need to get to the religiously the reforms. And the reforms are I can tell you the very simple way of the reforms. So before that, technically you need to address your fiscal deficit in the medium term, and that will address your current account deficit as you need to bridge in the saving and investment gap. And for the fiscal deficit, you need to see what you have gone wrong in the last 20 years. There are subsectors where there is an unprecedented boom, and the share of the taxation is much less, that's such as the real estate income, retail and trade income. In these sectors, there's an unprecedented move in the urban and the rural world, and those people have the consuming much higher than what they are. If someone sitting in front of me is earning 20 lakh per month from a corporate, he's paying 5-6 lakh a tax. But if a dukandar is earning 20 lakh a month, he's probably paying 50,000 in taxes. So if that guy to pay 600,000 in taxes, his consumption would go down by 550 taxes. That will help in lowering your current account deficit. And that taxation would help you raising your fiscal the tax revenue and lower the fiscal deficit. So unless you move towards that reform in a real sense, there is a consensus among the elite, be it the business elite, political elite, establishment elite, and all that, because all are beneficiary of that, you come to resolve. Otherwise, you'll go down, you'll keep on going down, you'll hit the bottom pit. The bottom pit may come in 2 years, may come in 5 years, may come in 10 years, whenever, and they'll start moving up. And it'll be a very painful process. There'll be a further brain drain in that. There will be dearth of talent and dollarization of the economy, and there'll be the haves and haves not would have a much higher impact. If you go to Lebanon, you'll see the similar thing over there. So if you don't want this to happen, first thing you need to do is to attain a political stability, get all the political parties on board, get ready on the reform, go for the election, and work on the reform religiously from all the stakeholders and take the economy out of this crisis, and take this crisis as an opportunity where some soft or hard restructuring to turn around the economy in a positive way. Here I stop, and will take more comments if be asked. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ali. I was just thinking of stopping you, because you were the kind of gloomy picture you were creating, and in fact, this is kind of realistic picture that you were trying to portray, and therefore that life gets tougher. This is the message that you are trying to communicate to all of us over here, and therefore we should expect realistically some of the major things happening in the next few months, which may not necessarily be something that we would be anticipating or we would be looking forward to. So after Ali, Tariq Sahab, your views on the overall perspectives of the economy, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. देखिए जहाँ तक economy का ताल्लुक है, we all are quite knowledgeable about where we are and the challenges that we have before us. And Ali has very rightly highlighted inflation and default and political issues and et cetera, as the current challenges. So I won't go into those details, but I'd just like to say, thank you. Well, I'd just like to highlight a concern that I have, which is slightly different from the usual things that one hears, and that is the level of inflation in the country. You see, Pakistan has never ever been in a hyperinflationary environment. We have not ever seen what hyperinflation can do to industry, to trade, to the government initiatives, etc. For example, if you look at countries like Argentina, Venezuela, Sri Lanka, etc., there is a huge change in consumer behavior. And I won't go into details of that, but there is a huge, unprecedented change. They downtrade the different products. So from a FMCG point of view or from marketing point of view, it's a change. Banks have a problem. Why? Because the money that people have, they convert into goods straight away because prices start to go up very fast. So the savings that are required in the banks start to gradually dry up. Insurance companies, people are paying premium at today's money and expecting the money to come in 10 years later, by which time the money is not worth it. Managing your businesses, inventory is always, in good management practices, dead money. You don't want too much inventory. JIT is the rule of the game. And when inflation picks up, then you have a situation where inventory can sometimes be a savior. And then, of course, the foreign exchange limitations that we have. So I'd just like to highlight that issue, that we need as a nation to understand what is it like living in hyperinflation environment. If it is not hyperinflation, which is technically defined, I think under the IAS rules as 100% inflation in 3 years consecutive. Even if we are not there, but the high scale and the rate at which we are growing, and the IMF, and as Ali rightly pointed out, we still continue to see. So from a national point of view, that's one issue. The second issue that I'd like to raise is that we in Pakistan fundamentally have two problems. One is not enough rupees, and the second is not enough dollars. So I'd like to just spend a couple of minutes on the matter of rupees. My own view, and I've discussed this with a number of people, that whilst tax base increment is essential and useful, but the real big numbers you will come from preventing evasion. Yesterday I was talking to a tax consultant and I said, hand on heart, how much do you think is the evasion? And you're dealing with 50s and 60 companies. He said, sir, minimum 60%. So if your revenue is like $12 trillion, and there is that kind of level of leakage, you can imagine what revenue impact could there be if you were able to control the evasion side. So that's one point. The second thing is, from a dollar perspective, Pakistan's exports is what I always talk about and I will continue to talk about. देखिए पाकिस्तान की एक्सपोर्ट में हमें realities मालूम नहीं है. Do you know that how many product clusters the world imports? 5,026. Do you know what Pakistan already exports? In spite of the government, in spite of our conditions, in spite of the environment? 3,217. 80% of whatever the world imports, we already export. So the question is not diversification, which we commonly hear about. The question is building market shares. The volumes need to be increased. Question is, how much can we achieve? My own working indicates that our potential is between 80 and $100 billion. Out of all the product clusters that we export, those that we export at $500 million per year per cluster, unki jo world demand hai, it's $11 trillion. What is 1% of that? $110 billion. So the point is that our paradigm of incremental increases has to move towards market shares, and that has policy implications. Question is, can it be done? Why doesn't it happen? And there are various reasons why it doesn't happen, but can it be done? In year 2000, our exports were $7.8 billion. And they had not moved ever since Pakistan came into being, 1947. They were stagnant. How did they move to $19 billion in 8 years? What did we do? Trust me, I was there. I was the head of the Export Promotion Bureau. We didn't do much. We focused on 12 sectors and moved the needle for those 12 sectors, apart from the traditional sectors, from $900 million to $2.4 billion. Point I'm making is, it is possible. And our private sector needs to be trusted and respected. And it can be done. And there are things that require for it to be done, and it can happen. So, from a foreign exchange point of view, our main issue is we don't have enough dollars. And that is making us, our sovereignty be compromised, our exchange rates, and all the impact that you know. So if we have that treasure, I was telling Asfar while we were sitting on the table, that we all feel sad where we are. But I feel hurt because I know the treasure that we are sitting on. $80, $100 billion, and we are not moving in the kind of direction that we need to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tariq Sahab. Salim Sahab, would you like to share your views, the summary views about what you think should be done in order to address this situation? You have been a strong proponent of a number of structural transformations.
Let's look at where we're going to move from here, because we're at a watershed. We've had, for the last 30 years, import-fueled and debt-fueled growth. Our investment to GDP is by far the lowest in the region. It's less than half India and Bangladesh, 14% of GDP. And what's been happening is, because of easy access to credit, our geopolitical significance also got us help. Easy access to the IMF, they've been in 18 times or 14 times since 1990. All that helped us finance deficits and build up debt till the curtain fell, and the curtain has fallen, because the geopolitical significance isn't what it was. The world markets, where interest rates were at record historical lows since 2008, for almost 15 years, certainly for about 12 of those 15 years. Those markets have, so therefore emerging markets could borrow excessively because they'd pay a 4-5% premium, and sovereign and bondholders and banks abroad were earning, 25 basis points or not even 1% on Western debt. So they all flocked to lending to emerging markets. So we built up debt during that period. And the third was the very soft touch IMF. They'd keep giving us advice. We would go 2 steps forward, then we'd complete the program and slip 5 steps back, then they'd come in again. And they were gentle. Now they're not. Now, I suppose if they were tired of us missing our targets in the past, and it's the same things we're being asked to do again, then they're being tough, it's understandable. The fourth is remittances, which covered our gap for a long time. Our exports were imports were about 1.2, 1.3 times our exports. Now the imports are 2.4 times. And this has been the trend, because we could finance it. Now we can't finance it. So a lot of our industrial growth, which was predicated on imports, because we didn't bother to build the intermediate industry at all. We relied on imported components, parts, chemicals, and we did screwdriver jobs here, putting things together, appliances, auto. We can't import those parts anymore. I mean, not that value of parts. So we have to make a new beginning. This domestic industry, import-based, debt-financed, reliant on domestic protection, and externally uncompetitive is not our future. I'm not quite sure what is our future, but I do know we've neglected certain critical parts of the economy, and the first is agriculture. Our agricultural deficit, if I define agriculture as food and cotton, raw cotton, we now have a deficit. Last year had a deficit of $5.5 billion. This year, with our cotton crop falling, if we try and get back, if we import the bales we've missed, last year's crop was 7, this year might be 5.5 or even less, possibly. Then we could be over 6 billion in the deficit. Can this 6 billion deficit turn around in 5 years, 7 years, to a 6 billion surplus? Now, if you talk to anybody in agriculture, there are lots of issues, lots of problems, but nothing that can't be addressed. You talk to a lot of people in agriculture. Look, cotton. Our production's fallen from 12, 13 million to 7 million. What sense does it make while our textile industry is expanding? Under turf, 500 billion rupees of expansion, machinery expansion. So who cares about what's happening to the production? I mean, who should have sat down and worried about it? I suppose the Planning Commission, if we had one, but in the Washington embrace of the Washington consensus, that was consigned to hell, and all it deals with are government, PC1s, government projects. So no one was thinking this. So what are we doing? Last year we imported $2.5 billion of cotton. This year we'll import more. We're meant to be a damn cotton-producing country. That's why we went for textiles in the first place. It's this, can we turn this $2.5 billion deficit in cotton around to $2.5 billion surplus? Well, we had it. It's gone up in the air. The land that's moved out of cotton, a lot has gone to sugar, which is bad. Some has gone to maize. The maize industry has done very well because the chicken industry has done very well. It's processors feeding back, processors and producers feeding back in the chain that revives agriculture. So maize has done well for that reason, and cotton has done badly because our big textile industry millers have not been interested in, first of all, ginning mills, which they should worry about because that's who they buy their yarn from, or cotton from for yarn. And then the ginners should be worried about the quality of cotton they're getting. They should be investing back in. I mean, that's how agriculture works. It's led by industry and it's led by processors, but the chain goes backwards. So if we now began looking at this chain, how do we do it? Give me 2 minutes and I'll go into that. If our processors and producers don't go back down the rice, all right, our rice exports are more or less stagnant, as are all agricultural exports. rice, we export about just over 2 million tons of rice. We do export some brands, but these brands are in bags. If instead we could build a brand and end up, with little packets that slipped onto a supermarket shelf, the markup from a bag to a packet was about 10 times. So 10% of our rice, $200,000, could go for 10 times the value. That, in theory, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. Building a brand isn't an easy thing, but it can be done. That's the point. So both cotton and rice. Sugar should be gone with sugar the way we are. Well, sugar has political connotations. We can leave that aside. But these are just, the potential to turn agriculture around is there. But you need extension services from the government that are effective. China spends 15% of the financial value of its entire crop production for a year on extension services. What are extension services? Is government worrying about little infrastructure, water improvement, water supply? Our farms are small. Under 90% are under 12.5 acres, 2/3 are under 5 acres. They're small farms. But India has a smaller average. China has a smaller average than us. So what's the difference? Why is their productivity so much higher? Because they work the farmers are made to. This is what extension services achieve. They're made to work together. So they get scale, they get the mechanization needs scale. Whatever you're going to purchase in bulk, you've got to do on a large scale. So both the Indian government and the Chinese government have encouraged collectives in agriculture. And these are voluntary. So people put their fields together for the purposes of being able to get higher productivity. So that is an important contribution of extension services. Then, of course, there's provision of seed, provision of mechanization. So we need that re-empowered. China spends so much. If we can spend a fifth of that, it will make a huge difference. Yeah. And the second is bringing our banks into agriculture. They're not in agriculture. Our banks lend about 300, and it turns over twice a year, so it becomes 600 or 610 billion. Nothing compared to the needs of agriculture, which is about 2.8 trillion is the number, is the amount of financing they need. What they get from banks is 500. The countries that have done well, the biggest agricultural countries are China, India, and Brazil. All these three have very, very powerful development banks, agricultural development banks. These agricultural development banks provide agronomy. They arrange for mechanization. These planters, rice planters, you need 10,000 acres for them to work economically. So they pool land.
Yes.
So they do work. So this is all the work. Bendis of Brazil is the world's most, impressive development bank. NABARD, National Bank of Agriculture and Rural Development in India, enormously effective. Besides Brazil, India and China, banking systems are government-owned. India 70%, China more than 90%. So they have directed lending, they force lending into agriculture. Then because banks, so once the development banks are in agriculture, providing the infrastructure, the extension services are working, then commercial banks come in.
Yeah.
They come in very happily because they can now see a farmer who can create a surplus, therefore pay them back. So they come in for working capital.
Yes.
Now, so I realize I've shot my bolt, but let me just finish this. This neglected agriculture has to go back to what we know but somehow don't seem to recognize, the most significant part of our economy. That's one. The second, we can talk about that later, is this enormous rising cash in circulation that Pakistan has.
Yeah.
Now 42% of deposits.
Yeah, welcome on.
Absolutely unimaginably large figure compared to anyone else.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Salim Saab. Khurram, I would request your views on the overall perspectives, and mostly concentrating on how, because you have been communicating a number of suggestions to me as well, in terms of how we can move forward.
Thank you, Faraz, for having me. Actually, you see, I've got a case to discuss with you guys, with the audience also. और मुझे थोड़ा सा आपसे एक आइडिया लेना है कि आपके जहन में वो क्या आता है अगर मैं उस कंट्री के बारे में बताता हूँ आपको. You see, I recently studied a case in point which was quite similar to दैट ऑफ पाकिस्तान, अभी जो हालात हमारे चल रहे हैं. सो जो सिचुएशन कंट्री फेस कर रहा है वो दो हैं इस वक्त. नंबर वन इज़ ऑफ कोर्स एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स, द ग्लोबल रिसेशन. द सेकंड इज़ इंटरनल फैक्टर्स. अब मैं थोड़े से आपसे पॉइंट्स शेयर करता हूँ, एंड देन यू लेट मी नो कि आपके जहन में क्या आता है उससे रिलेटेड, वो और क्या सजेशंस होनी चाहिए. इसी एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स की जब बात करते हैं, सो देयर इज़ अ वॉर erupted few months back, and that actually pushed oil prices to all-time high, number one. From the internal side, this is the biggest factor that hurts the country, their external finances particularly. Then in the internal, situation, there's this flood situation, of course. उसको मैं इस तरह से कहता हूँ कि पॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन है, सोशल सिचुएशन है, या पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी है, पॉलिसी इनकन्सिस्टेंसी है, कोलिशन गवर्नमेंट है, और फिर आपके फाइनेंसेस बहुत फ्रेजाइल हैं, विच मीन्स कि आपके पास ऑफ कोर्स फिजिकल डेफिसिट आपका 8% ऑफ GDP है, विच इज़ ऑलमोस्ट ऑल टाइम हाई. योर करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट इज़ 3.5% of GDP, which is again one of the highest in recent times. Then you've got this debt problem. आपके पास थर्ड हाईएस्ट डेट है दुनिया का, और आपके यहाँ जो है सोशल प्रॉब्लम शुरू हो गए, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर जो है वो रीमर्ज हो गया. सो आपके जहन में कौन सा कंट्री आता है? एनी गेसेस? पाकिस्तान डेफिनेटली? यस और नो? कोई एक बताए, आप बताएं. रोहिल भाई? सॉरी, नो इट्स नॉट श्रीलंका. एनी अदर गेस? मुनिस? सर, दिस इज इंडिया इन 1991. इंडिया को 1991 में दे फेस द सेम सिचुएशन, इन फैक्ट मच सिवियर सिचुएशन देन व्हाट वी आर फेसिंग टुडे. इंडिया का इंटरनल फैक्टर क्या थे मैं बताता हूँ अभी आपको, और एक्सटर्नल थ्रेट्स क्या थे उसको. 1991 में गल्फ वॉर शुरू हुई थी, आप सबको याद होगा. ऑफ कोर्स हम सारे उस वक्त जो इस एज ग्रुप में हैं कि हमें अच्छी तरह से याद होगा. दैट एक्चुअली सेंट ऑयल प्राइसेस फ्रॉम $15 per barrel to $35 per barrel, which is 133% increase within months. ये तो आपका एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर हो गया, जिसने उस जो इंडिया के, अब एक्सटर्नल अकाउंट की मैं बात करता हूँ कि कितना फ्रेजाइल था और इस सिचुएशन ने कैसे उसको किस सिचुएशन में लाके खड़ा किया. हम केस स्टडीज करते हैं, सो दैट वी हैव सम सॉर्ट ऑफ इनपुट्स टू टेक डिसीजन ऑन, ताकि हम उसको उस सिचुएशन को ओवरकम कर सकें. इंडिया को ऑयल प्राइसेस की वजह से उनका जो एक्सटर्नल अकाउंट था वो बहुत ज़्यादा फ्रेजाइल हो गया. उनके पास $1 billion था रिजर्व्स में, जस्ट 2 weeks ऑफ इम्पोर्ट कवर, जस्ट टू गिव इट अ कॉन्टेक्स्ट. पाकिस्तान के पास जो रिजर्व्स हैं वो 4 जो है वीक्स के हैं, 4 weeks ऑफ इम्पोर्ट कवर हो चुका है इस वक्त, $4.5 billion रफली. इंडिया को की रेमिटेंसेस जो है वो बहुत बड़ा सपोर्ट था, वो गिरना शुरू हो गई बिकॉज ऑफ द गल्फ वॉर ऑफ कोर्स. थर्ड जो इंटरनल फैक्टर्स थे, राजीव गांधी को मार दिया गया था, उनका एक बड़ा लीडर 1991 या 92 में मार दिया गया था. फिर उनके यहाँ मुंबई ब्लास्ट हुए, सीरीज ऑफ ब्लास्ट 1993 में. और उसके अलावा अगर आप देखें, बाबरी मस्जिद का इशू हुआ था उस वक्त. तो इसका मतलब है कि सोशल, पॉलिटिकल, इकोनॉमिक, ये तीनों प्रॉब्लम्स थे. एक्सटर्नल अकाउंट में वही प्रॉब्लम्स है जो हम फेस कर रहे हैं. हमारे $4 अरब है, उनका $1 अरब था. हमारे $100 billion इन डेट है, उनका $70 billion इन डेट था, विच वॉज थर्ड हाइएस्ट एट दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम इन द वर्ल्ड. उनके पास एक कॉल थी उस वक्त लेने की, वो ये थी, इट्स अ मेक और ब्रेक कॉल. वहाँ पे नरसिम्हा राव ने, हु वाज अ सिविलियन लीडर हु टुक द कॉल, उन्होंने क्या किया. मैं सिचुएशन इसलिए क्रिएट कर रहा हूँ सो दैट व्हाट वी कैन डू राइट नाउ, हम सिमिलर, उनसे थोड़ी सी कम डिफिकल्ट सिचुएशन फेस कर रहे हैं, तो हमें क्या करना चाहिए. और उन्होंने क्या किया ये मैं आपको बताऊंगा, ताकि आपको ये आइडिया हो कि हम क्या कर सकते हैं, ताकि हम भी इस सिचुएशन से निकलें. ही टुक अ कॉल. उन्होंने सबसे पहले क्या किया, उन्होंने 4 लोग अपॉइंट किए. 4 लोग. एक RBI का गवर्नर, विच इज़ द स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, मतलब इक्वलेंट टू स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया. सेकंड ट्रेड मिनिस्टर, थर्ड फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर, एंड फोर्थ प्लानिंग कमीशन मिनिस्टर, डेप्टी मिनिस्टर प्लानिंग कमीशन. सॉरी सर, मैं आता हूँ जी, मैं आता हूँ. क्वेश्चन आंसर में आप ये पूछिएगा, मैं इसका जवाब दूंगा. तो उन्होंने 4 लोग अपॉइंट किए, कॉम्पिटेंट लोग. सेकेंडली उनको एम्पावर किया कि आप देखिए, मैं सिर्फ ये बताना चाह रहा हूँ कि पॉलिटिकल लीडर की एक्यूमेन और एबिलिटी टू हैंडल द सिचुएशन इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. उन्होंने क्या किया, उन्होंने 4 लोग अपॉइंट किए. उन्होंने उनसे ही कहा, सबसे पहले जो मनमोहन सिंह थे उन्होंने कहा कि वी हैव टू टेक अ वेरी डिफिकल्ट डिसीजन विच इज़ हाईली अनपॉपुलर. वो क्या था? करेंसी डिवैल्यूएशन का डिसीजन था उनका सबसे पहला. और हमने यहाँ क्या किया है पिछले 6-8 महीने में? सबसे बड़ा डिसीजन ही गलत लिया हमने, जिससे सारी सिचुएशन को वर्स कर दिया है. कमिंग बैक टू द केस, उन्होंने ये किया, उन्होंने करेंसी को सबसे पहले डिवैल्यू किया बाय 33% विद इन 2 days. 33%. वहां से उन्होंने बिल्ड कैसे किया केस को? एट द सेम टाइम, देखिए वॉर फुटिंग पे आपको काम करना है, ये डेस्परेट सिचुएशन है, ये प्लीज़ हमें ये बड़ा रिकग्नाइज करना है कि ये आसान सिचुएशन नहीं है. तो उन्होंने सबसे पहले डिवैल्यू किया, उसी पे बिल्ड किया ट्रेड पॉलिसी को एक्सपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड. एट द सेम टाइम एफडीआई को उन्होंने कंप्लीट ओपन किया. एट द सेम टाइम जो उनका आपका लाइसेंस राज था उसको ख़त्म किया. उन्होंने प्राइवेटाइजेशन फॉरेन शुरू की, और उनके 3 साल में आप रिजल्ट देखें, जो नॉन ऑयल डेफिसिट था दैट टर्न्ड इनटू सरप्लस. उसके बाद क्या हुआ? उसके बाद देखें, ये कॉल ली ना, लीडर्स ने कॉल ली. अब मैं बताता हूँ ये 5 लर्निंग्स हैं इसके अंदर जो हम करें. रिफॉर्म्स जिसे कहते हैं, एक तो हमारे कोलीग्स ने बात की, डेफिनेटली वो तो हमें करना है कि डेट को ठीक करना है, एनर्जी को ठीक करना है, फिजिकल डेफिसिट को ठीक करना है. बट ये कॉल्स आपको लेनी है जिसकी बेसिस पे आपके अगले 5 साल 8 साल बेहतर होंगे, और उसके बाद आपका जो अगले आएंगे वो उसको आगे लेके चलें. उन्होंने 5 चीज़ें की. नंबर 1, देयर वाज अ विल, स्ट्रॉन्ग विल. नसीमा राव पहले गवर्नमेंट ले नहीं रहे थे, उनको ये कहा गया कि देखें हमारे लीडर मर चुके हैं, उन्हें कत्ल कर दिया गया, अब आप लें, ये इस वक्त सिचुएशन बहुत ख़राब है. उन्होंने कहा मैं लेता हूँ. अच्छा, आपको पता है नसीमा राव टेक्निकली स्ट्रांग नहीं थे, कोई टेक्नोक्रेट नहीं थे, कुछ नहीं थे, लेकिन उनके पास पॉलिटिकल विल थी और पॉलिटिकल इक्यूमेन थी. उन्होंने क्या किया? उन्होंने स्ट्रांग विल दिखाई, नंबर 1. सेकंड, मोस्ट कॉम्पिटेंट टीम, इंटीग्रिटी के साथ. जो इंटीग्रिटी वाले थे, मोस्ट कॉम्पिटेंट थे, दे हैड अ बैकग्राउंड, दे हैड अ ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड, उनको उन्होंने डाला. थर्ड जो चीज़ थी इंपॉर्टेंट, वो थी he had his skin in the game. अगर मैं कहता हूँ skin in the game, उसका मतलब ये है कि उन्होंने वहीं रहना था, उन्होंने डिसीजंस लेके जाना नहीं था वहाँ से. नसीमा राव के तो ये स्टेटमेंट है कि मैंने यहीं खाना है, यहीं दाल साग अपना जो है वो खाना है, यहीं मैंने इसी सोसाइटी में रहना है, मेरी जनरेशन यहीं होगी. थर्ड पॉइंट, स्ट्रॉन्ग विल, कॉम्पिटेंट टीम, स्किन इन द गेम. लास्ट 2 आर द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वंस. Actually, civilian government took the call. They took the, they called the shots. किसी और ने नहीं किया. 5वां ये था, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी वर्सेस पावर. एक जगह पे थी, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी अलग नहीं थी हमारी तरह और पावर अलग नहीं थी. ये मैंने पॉइंट ऐसा बोला है तो मेरे ख्याल में इसलिए तो exactly. तो हमें ये सोचना है कि हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी और पावर एक जगह पे होगी, ये सारे काम हो सकते हैं. और ये जो शॉर्ट टर्म मैनेजमेंट है ये सब हो सकती है अगर ये में 5 चीज़ें करें. दिस इज़ द वे फॉरवर्ड. अगर इंडिया कर सकता है, व्हाई कांट वी डू इट? थैंक यू.
थैंक यू. खुर्रम, मेरे ख्याल में एक और सेशन करना पड़ेगा ये अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए कि अब वो जो 5 चीज़ें आपने कही हैं वो कैसे करें, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली दैट इज़ द रेसिपी फॉर सक्सेस फॉर पाकिस्तान. सो थैंक यू वेरी मच खुर्रम. Qassim, over to you. Obviously, I will have to find out from the organizers as to what kind of time frame we have left in terms of further deliberations on the subject, because obviously I think that we are running acutely short of time. Ali, is my understanding correct? You've got 20 minutes?
I'll try to keep it short as well.
Yeah, sure. So Qassim, over to you, please.
Thank you, Faraz. First of all, everybody else here is quite senior and experienced, so I will introduce myself. My name is Qassim Naveed Qamar. I'm the Special Assistant to the Government of Sindh for Investments and Public-Private Partnerships. Sari baatein, Salim Saab obviously knows much more than I do, and what Ikram Saab was talking about. The way that we got into this situation with whether you want to start with the pandemic or the floods that we faced in the province of Sindh, you know, where we stand right now, it is quite a gloomy situation, unfortunately. And, you know, whereas we have a multitude of problems, whether it's our debt, whether it's the inflation, the shortage of dollar, the not opening of LCs, in all of this, I still find that we could perhaps find the silver lining in some opportunities. You know, like Ikram Saab said, and rightly so, that it's not a shortage of resources or a lack of resources that we have in whether it's Sindh or Pakistan. But I think we all need to work collectively to channel those. And as government, we need to provide that sort of environment for those who, the players to come forward and be able to channel whether it's, you know, value addition. आपने agriculture के बारे में बात की काफ़ी. Unfortunately, there has been very stagnant growth in agriculture. We have not really innovated or added any sort of technology to improve our yields or improve our products. You know, you take the basic example of our mango that we're so proud of, but we have not really done much more beyond just enjoying it for those few months that we have the mango season. So that value addition is essential. That's where, you know, I'll give you one small example. So the investment department is broken up into multiple companies, and one of them is the SEDF, which is Sindh Enterprise Development Fund, where we work with companies new enterprises who want to set up shop in the province of Sindh. We give them, help them with their feasibilities. We give them subsidies on their markup. Abhi jo aapka 20% or beyond interest rates jo chal rahe hain, us time pe, I think if a new enterprise was going to start, that would be a make or break for them, the 20%. And if the government of Sindh is providing that facility, I think that is, I'm not saying that it's a complete solution, but it is a peg in that ecosystem that we need to work towards. Besides that, there is the Sindh SEZMC, which is Sindh Economic Zone Management Company, where we are trying to set up these special economic zones, Dabiji being the largest and hopefully the most promising one. We have Khairpur, we have Sakhar, Hyderabad, and Nawabshah coming up. Again, the idea is to give that environment where you can have someone come in a plug-and-play sort of situation. You can set up your enterprises. Gas, bijli, pani should not be something that an investor or industrialist should have to worry about. So these are some of the small things, I think, that, you know, after the 18th Amendment, where the provinces are empowered to create these opportunities, we also look at that as an opportunity where, you know, government of Sindh or Pakistan People's Party has been in government for the past 14 years in Sindh. And our policies that we have seen, that we have started or initiated 10 years ago, and we see their results right now, I think that should also give investors a little bit of comfort and confidence to come in and work with us. You know, again, the economic situation is not ideal. I'm not going to sit here and try to defend what the federal government is doing, but at the same time, as the provincial government, we have to create and help facilitate those, whether it's indigenous, whether it's foreign investment coming in, to support them, to hold their hand, to bring reforms in doing business, in the way that we do things, whether it's licensing or any sort of end where you want to go and start a business. So the investment department will work with you, hold your hand, and sort of help you set up that shop.
Thank you very much, Qassim. I think in the interest of time, what I would do is, you know, because most of the conversations already happened in terms of the further deliberation that we want to do with each of the panelists, I think it's a good idea to take the questions from the audience rather than we deliberating amongst ourselves. on further of the points which have broadly been covered. So I would open the dialogue for the audience and would try and take questions from them. So can anybody please hand over the mics to the ones who would like to ask questions?
Yeah. My question to the panelists is that we have talked a lot about corruption, but what is in your view the real problem of Pakistan? Is it corruption or flight of capital, whether the monetary capital or the human capital? Our exporters under-invoice and they park their money outside Pakistan. Our importers over-invoice, they park their money outside Pakistan. So the real problem is not corruption. If corruption is within the country, money will remain here. It will get into any shape, into some economic activity. So how to control the flight of capital? China is a very classic example where they have strict control on the capital movement. So in my personal view, probably this needs more deliberation than corruption and other factors.
So Ali, would you like to take that?
From a capital fight is a problem. They both are linked. I mean, when you under-invoice and over-invoice, or you promise something and deliver something, what do you call it? It's a corruption. So that corruption and capital flight, the illegal move of money through Hundiyawala and other way around, is illegal. That's corruption. So they both are linked first. And now the problem, the capital flight is, I mean, you're saying that we need to sort out the capital flight through restricting the capital flows. The capital flows are highly restricted in Pakistan. And that's why there is a capital flight from illegal means. You know, and we don't have the governance system to ensure that. We have porous borders with Iran and Afghanistan, politically sensitive and all that. Then we have like KPIs moving Lahore to Dubai more than people moving and all that. And then the launches moving away from Karachi, taking money to Dubai and all that. So, I mean, you're saying we impose further more capital control and control that through our, governance and security checks. I mean, I wish Pakistan could have that kind of a security. So if we can't have that, the other way around is to open the capital. Open the capital. Open the capital, capital can flow out legally and capital can come in legally. Once the people have that kind of a confidence, they'll start putting money in. So Pakistan opened the capital in 91, 92. And by 1998, the State Bank, within that, the FE25, the people foreign exchange were $11.5 billion. At that time, State Bank reserves were below $1 billion. We froze that. And today, we could never reach out that $11.5 billion again. People never, today we have about $6 billion and all that, and the economy size is much bigger than that. At the time, economy is under $100 billion, and that economy is about $300 billion today. So the capital, you need to open up the capital. In a country like that, you need to trust people, and you need to attract capital and let the capital to move. The mobility is the key. Capital, like water, it will find its course. You want that course to be legally channeled, or you want that to break your walls? That's the question. And corruption and what you're saying is the same, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Khurram, okay, go ahead. No, you have.
हेलो
Yeah.
हाँ जी, ये बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट आपने सवाल किया. देखें, करप्शन इज़ वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट प्रॉब्लम्स इन द वर्ल्ड, नॉट जस्ट पाकिस्तान. ये हमें जहन में बिठा लेना चाहिए. सेकेंडली, मैं थोड़ा सा आपको एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट देता हूँ. यू नो ट्रांसपेरेंसी इंटरनेशनल का एक इंडेक्स है, आपको पता है. पाकिस्तान उस पर 140s में समथिंग है, 130s 140s में. बांग्लादेश इज़ वर्स देन यू ऑन दैट इंडेक्स. बांग्लादेश की सितंबर 2022 एक महीने की मैं आपको FDI बताता हूँ. इट्स $1.2 बिलियन एक महीने की. क्लोजिंग अबाउट $10 बिलियन, $12 बिलियन ये ठीक है. इंडिया इज समवेयर अराउंड, आई मीन इट्स क्लोज टू यू ऑन दैट इंडेक्स, द सेम इंडेक्स ट्रांसपेरेंसी इंटरनेशनल है, जो ग्लोबली जो है वो एक्सेप्टेबल है. इंडिया fetched highest FDI last year in the world, even higher than China's, $85 billion. इस साल वो 90 बिलियन क्लोज कर रहे हैं। आपको आप देख रहे हैं, मैं नंबर्स आपसे कर रहा हूँ। तो करप्शन इज वन ऑफ द इश्यूज बट नॉट द ओनली इशू फेसिंग पाकिस्तान। प्लीज़ इसको ध्यान में रखें। हमारे पास ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट का बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है। फिजिकल डेफिसिट तो है ही हमारा, ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट, इंटेलेक्चुअल डेफिसिट दुनिया के साथ ये प्रॉब्लम है। और हम ना सिक्योरिटी स्टेट अपने आप को पोजीशन करते हैं, कॉन्शियसली सबकॉन्शियसली। सिक्योरिटी स्टेट, बेगिंग स्टेट, सॉरी टू यूज दिस वर्ड, बेगिंग स्टेट आप यूज करते हैं अपने आप को। तो ये ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट है ना आपका। कैपिटल फ्लाइट क्यों नहीं होगी? एफडीआई क्यों नहीं आती आपके पास? अगर एफडीआई का मौका मिले मैं आपको कुछ और 4-5 पॉइंट्स ऐड कर सकता हूँ, बट क्वेश्चंस आ जाएं और तो फिर मैं आपको उस पर जवाब देता हूँ। लेकिन पॉइंट ये है कि करप्शन इज वन ऑफ द इशूज बट नॉट द ओनली इशू फेसिंग पाकिस्तान, जिसकी वजह से कैपिटल फ्लाइट होती है, कैपिटल आता नहीं है या इकॉनमी नहीं चलती। ये प्रॉब्लम्स हैं आपके यहाँ, ट्रस्ट के बड़े मसले हैं आपके यहाँ।
थैंक यू खुर्रम जी तारिक साहब जी बोलिए।
whether it's working, yeah. Just very briefly, ये भी जहन में रखिए कि दो किस्म की चीज़ है। एक तो ब्लेटेंट चोरी है, आपने मिस डिक्लेयर करके ड्यूटी बचा ली, चोरी है। और एक होता है कि आप विद इन द लॉ उसका जो बेनिफिट ले लें या जो एनवायरनमेंट डिक्टेट करता है उसके मुताबिक आप चलते हैं। अगर एक्सचेंज रेट का, बैंक का और मार्केट का डिफरेंस बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा तो हुंडी जो है वो तो फैलेगी। सो दोनों के हल अलग अलग हैं, चोरी के या जो सिस्टम में कोई वीकनेस हो।
Thank you, sir. Any other question from the audience, please? One is, you probably had the same question from Khurram, right?
So, very quick question to Khurram, and again, whoever wants to respond.
Sure.
So, India did fantastic, we know, and I'm sure they are better than where we are right now. And probably we also tried that. Pakistan hired Arif Osmani Saab as chief of National Bank, and then Shabbar Saab as head of FBR. Something happened to them. And I don't know, whether are we on the road to take up these kind of challenges? Do we have the capacity with the current situation to hire these people to turn around and take those decisions? And if not, how much time do we have?
Hello.
आपसे सवाल है।
Your last point, how much time do we have? It should have been done as of yesterday. Number one, ठीक है, टाइम हमारे पास बिल्कुल नहीं है। Secondly, yes, we've got the people who can do it. आपको याद है मैंने 5 पॉइंट्स कहे थे, स्ट्रॉन्ग विल, स्किन इन द गेम, कॉम्पिटेंट टीम, ये 3 तो होने ही चाहिए। लास्ट जो 2 पॉइंट्स है ना, ये आपके जवाब है। वन इज़ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी वर्सेस पावर। ये आप एक जगह ले आएँ, ये सब जो लोग आपने हायर किए थे ना, यही काम कर सकते हैं आपके। विच मीन्स सिविलियंस शुड कॉल द शॉट्स, दैट्स इट। इससे ज़्यादा मैं नहीं बोल सकता।
सर इसमें मोहनिस भाई, मैं आपको अपना प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस भी बता दूं। इसमें मेरा ख्याल है कि हमारे वो जो आप पॉलिटिकल विल की बात कर रहे हैं, वो ही को मैं आगे लेके चलता हूं कि जब तक कि आपके एनवायरनमेंट, ये पार्लियामेंट्री फॉर्म ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी है ना, जहाँ पे हर डिसीजन मेकर को वोट का सोचना है, जो कि अच्छी भी है बुरी भी, वो आई लीव दैट, मगर तब तक वो पॉलिटिकल विल जो है वो बड़ी चैलेंजिंग हो जाती है। हम कहने को बतेरा कहते हैं कि जी बेशुमार मिनिस्टर्स रखे हुए हैं, क्यों रखे हुए हैं भाई, नज़र नहीं आता कि खर्चे बहुत बढ़ रहे हैं, ये वो है, मगर पॉलिटिकल विल कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड है ना। सो ये हमारा जो एनवायरनमेंट है, और मैं मुशर्रफ की मुझे बात याद आती है, जो पहले 3 साल जो हमारे थे, जबकि कैबिनेट 15-16 साल बंदों की कैबिनेट थी, किसी को ये तकलीफ नहीं थी कि जी वोट लेने के लिए मुझे कुछ करना है। वॉट एवर नीड्स टू बी डन नीड्स टू बी डन। और उसमें भी हम 100% डिसीजन वो नहीं ले सके जो लेने चाहिए थे। आपको याद है लिबर्टी मार्केट के अंदर हमें विड्रॉ करना पड़ा था जब टैक्स की ज़बरदस्ती की थी। सो ये जो सिस्टम ऐसा है जिसके अंदर के आदमी को यू कैन डू समथिंग एंड यू कैन डू सम थिंग्स।
Right, see, thank you very much. I have just received notice. Obviously, we need to close this session as soon as possible, obviously. So thank you very much for your patient listening, all the questions that you asked. Thank you very much, each of the esteemed panelists, for joining us today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, may I request Mr. Abid Akbar Wazir, Ms. Sadia Naveed, along with Mr. Talib Karim, to please join us on stage and present mementos to the distinguished speakers. Syed Qassim. Syed Qassim Naveed Qamar, you are requested to please step forward and accept the memento. Mr. Tariq Ikram, you're requested to please step forward. Mr. Ali Khizar Aslam, please step forward and accept the memento. Mr. Khurram Schehzad, please step forward. Mr. Syed Faraz Anwer, please step forward and accept the memento.